And you know, I put it together for a reason. And one of the reasons is because I can hand this to a child and even send them out in the hall. Now, that may not be the case where you are, but that was one of the things that I could do. And remember how we talked about silent reading yesterday, and that there are children who are not going to be able to even do a phonetic reader like this during that sustained silent time? This is the kind of thing they can do. They could sound out words, and I know there's going to be a low frustration factor because guess what? You've tried it and you got it right or you didn't, you're going to know immediately. Does this make sense? So this is one of the reasons that I have them in this format. And the way that I would present it is almost exactly the same way I did the other one. We're going to sound out these words. But the things that's going to be different, and I wouldn't point out the association, but the thing that's different than some of the cards we have is you'll know right away if you ag. Look there. See the red arrow? That's pointing to the tag. That tells you it's a tag, not a suitcase. Bag. Oops, I flipped two of them. There we go. Lesson done. You do the rest. When you're finished, make sure you put it back where it belongs. Okay? Yes?
Could you, I think the presentation is great, and I see how the classroom management of like presenting and moving on is really beneficial since we don't have things in our room. I know for myself as a teacher, I want to stay there so long to make sure they really have it before I let them go. So can you speak more to the release and the importance of that and the purposefulness of it?
Absolutely. One of the reasons is because if you stay with them, whose speed is going to take over the time together? Yours. I mean, I want you to just reflect on our experience here today and your unwillingness to just jump in and say, here, let me show you how I'd present that, Miss Susan. Okay? That your children are going to be that way, at least some of them to some extent. If you leave them with it, they're going to do it their way. Now, some of them are just going to stare up at the ceiling, and that's part of this process. So some of it is you're going to have to let go of it looking a certain way, and you're going to have to trust them a little bit. Okay? But that's one of the main advantages is that then they can kind of do it at their pace and their way. Okay? Now, that kind of sets us up a little bit. Okay. Oh, they're there. I knew we had these with us. Now, this is a fun transition material that's going to transition us into blue. So this would be how they would first have it. And this is an assessment exercise as well as an exercise that is a practice exercise. But it's trickier now because there's no picture, there's no fan here. I have to say this, and then I have to decide for myself, is that a word or is that not a word? And this is where I'm going to tie in the writing. Because what we're doing is we are moving across this table from writing individual words to writing two-word sentences, to writing as big of a sentence as the child is capable of writing. And that's actually a way to think about it, is that pink is a two-sentence level. Two-word sentence level, and we'll talk about how to do that. We'll review how to do that in a minute. Typically, when you get to long vowels, which is all blue in my particular coding, you're looking at 3 to 5 word sentences, usually. You're not going to get to 5 to 7 word sentences for most children until they're into green. And so both the phonics and the level of expression through sentence structure is moving up as we move across here. Does that make sense? Is anybody willing to risk and tell how we teach the children to do 2-word sentences with these little verb cards? Would anybody review that for the people from yesterday? I know I told some of you.
Just like their name?
Exactly. Exactly. So what's one of the first things they learn to write? Their name. And then typically they're going to have to add an S. And so that's one of the things that we talk about. It's in the present moment. And when we talk about verbs and I roll a ball to you and then I ask you to give me the ball and you give me back the ball and then I say, give me the roll. And then they'll roll the ball back to you and you say, no, I want the first roll. Give me the roll. And then you give them a high five and you say, okay, give me your hand, assuming it's okay, you know, that they're comfortable touching you. Now give me the high five. No, give me the first high five. What you're doing is you're teaching them the transient nature of verbs, okay? And so we then are learning present tense verbs. Now, Susan clap doesn't make any sense. I have to put claps because that's the only way it makes sense if I don't add some other words in there. And so Susan claps means I'm doing it right now. So do you see how, if you've got someone who's really struggling, am I going to give them that extra stuff? No. But if you've got one of those children that's just, you know, eating up your pink reading as fast as she possibly can, because it usually is a she, but not always, then you're going to give them those little bits that they can pick up along the way, okay? So, yes?
Is the oral part of this, like I often think of actually having children put, even in the book, of saying the words first, of hearing and saying the language, oral language first, and then doing other work with it. Do you, when you're presenting the lesson, are they participating and are they saying the word, or, for example, if you want them to make a sentence, they're going to say that sentence. You're going to maybe have the group say the sentence, say different students say sentences. You make them put their word, in other words, oral practice in the sense.
Depends upon the child. Completely depends upon the child. In my most recent teaching experience, the San Diego Quick indicated that a child was reading below the second grade level, and he brought the chapter books from home. And then came and told me what was in the chapter books. You know, just the auditory just did not connect the way the visual did for this little guy. And so would I have him saying it out loud? Absolutely not. You know, now if we are doing some practice and we've built rapport and then it's his turn to read aloud, yes, but I'm not going to cause him to feel uncomfortable by asking him to do that.
I think what I agree with you. I know.
Okay.
I've had that experience with San Diego Quick, but I'm thinking of the children hearing these words and hearing the language. That is not as an assessment in a sense.
Part of the presentation. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. Now, in the first example that I gave you in our small group, let's say that I have a child that I know can read most of the words in there. Maybe I've even asked someone from a different reading group to sit in, and I'm going to leave that child to help them with it. Then no. I'm going to do it just as quick as I showed you. And as I said, a lot of this is so you can function in the Montessori setup that you have. Ideally, would we spend more time saying them together? Absolutely. And the modeling of you reading books aloud at lunchtime or after lunch or whenever it is you can fit it into your schedule, absolutely. Does that kind of answer it?
Yeah, I can.
Well, and I think perhaps the main answer is if we had time and a second adult in the room all the time, probably. Most of the time, yes. If we don't, then we're going to have to adapt to what we have. Okay. Now this one, is this a word? Yes. So you would write that one down. So here, this is as soon as I require writing. Now, some students would be writing, you know, from the very first pink exercise that I do with them, but it just sort of depends on where they are. If I can't even read the letters that they're writing, I'm still going to be teaching them pink reading and working with them with the metal insets or, you know, manual exercises or whatever I need to do to get their letters up to the point where we can tell what the letters are. And they're going to be moving through here, but by here they're going to have to write, because that's the way you do this exercise, is you write the words that are words. So this is fan. Now would I write this? As far as I know, it's not a word. And that is what I tell the children. Now how about this? Fin. And here we may do some vocabulary development. So what is a fin? Oh, it's something that helps you move through the water. We see it on fish. We see it on boats. Okay. What about this? And no, you know, Jennifer, it's not phone. Remember, this is pink. So what's this vowel going to say? Ah. So fawn. There's a word like that, but it's not spelled this way. So this is not a word. Okay? So you can see that this can be a pretty complex exercise, and it's one of those things that we're really starting into agreed upon spelling. Up until here, creative spelling, I'm completely fine with it. I don't say anything about it. Any way that you want to write it that we can all read it is fine. Here we start talking about, oh, now I understand you meant a baby deer when you wrote F-O-N. And the reason I didn't understand that is the way we've agreed to spell that word is this way. And I don't say it. I write it out for him or her. Okay? Does that kind of, yes?
So what if the kids are now comfortable with that activity and they are doing it on their own?
Mm-hmm.
And there is an adult there to correct them if they think that fen is a word, they write it down. They're probably they might know how to use a dictionary. Do you have a dictionary?
No. They're not ready for a dictionary. They're not even ready for a personal dictionary at this level. That's right where we're moving to. That's how you check their work.
So the teacher just later goes back.
Yes, that's one of the things that I can't give you the procedure laid out because most of what I've done, I have been fortunate to have an assistant most of the times that I have taught. And so most of my procedures do involve that there are two adults in the room. But we will work on this together on the Facebook page. If there are two adults in the room, the child at this level would take the paper to the adult who's up. But one of the things you'll hear me talk about is when one is up, one is down. And in your situation, you're almost always going to be the ones who are down. The one who is down is the one engaged presenting lessons. The one who is up is the ones doing little bits of coaching, checking work, taking care of any behavioral things that are happening like that. But the teacher who is up, you would take your paper to. They would then ask you to read any of the words they were concerned about, and then I modeled how you would deal with fawn. Well, that's a baby deer. My mommy told me that's a baby deer. Yes, but. And then on the paper beside, you would write F-A-W-N and say, now this is the third sound of A. You haven't learned that one yet, but does that make sense? Yeah. It sounds a lot like ah, but it's not quite the same thing.
Okay. So that's probably the whole purpose of having them write the words down. So then you have
not the whole, but yes.
If you're the only teacher in the classroom, then you know what student you need to go
exactly.
back to.
And you just made a wonderful point. When they're at this level, if they're taking any of the pink work off the shelf, sounding it out in any fashion, are they getting benefit? You got to let go of them working with the absolute perfect thing for them and doing it the absolute perfect way. So now what has happened? What have we introduced? What is the new content? Okay, give me the specific new content, the very specific new content. Silent E. Silent E making the what say it's what? There you go. Okay. So Maine. Here's some vocabulary development. Yes, that's on the horse. Mean. Well, and I was going to say, it might be a word that I don't know, but it's not a word that I know. It's perfectly fine to say that. Mine, yes, something that belongs to you. Moan. Now, there is a word that's moan, but it isn't spelled this way. Okay, so this is actually a pretty complex exercise, and you do not have to use it with that degree of complexity, but you can. Now, I want us to move on, especially since we've got some of our folks here that I'm sure at least some of this will not be useful to them in the classroom. Is there anyone who doesn't feel like, if I take that off the table, that you couldn't practice with the things on this table? Is there anybody who doesn't feel like you would not be able to practice with the things on there? Okay, because we're going to do that in a moment while I pull out those game cards for you. I want to give you just one more piece, which is for those of you who already have the things in your classroom that are coded in the more traditional Montessori coding. It is not that hard to switch them if you choose to. You can put blue dots on your materials that have long vowel sounds. Okay? Now the blue things that you already have, you can put pink dots on them, or you can just say, we're going to use these, but we're not going to use them for long vowel practice. So maybe you put some of them away, and you see how you do with the things that you already have. It kind of depends on what you want to do. Pink stickers aren't as easy to come across, and with some children it's not going to be that big of a deal, but if you do have blue things like brag would be a blue word in most systems. So if you do keep yours blue, that's going to mean you're not going to be able to have that, oh, if you see blue at this level of reading, it means a long vowel sound. It means the vowel says its name. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do there. But you certainly can put blue dots on your green material that's long vowel sounds, so that then if you see something that's green, the blue dot is the cue for you. You don't have to keep sounding, because if you see the blue dot, you know the vowel's going to say its name. Okay? Did you have another question? Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just mention that this coding for the first 100 words is in this book for those of you who are new today. This book will be on your drive. There's more copies of it over here. I want to go ahead and have you practice with something until 10 o'clock. And it can be anything in the room. I don't want you to visit. If you're talking to another person, you are practicing with them. So you are being the child and they're being the student, or you're being the student and they're being the child. Upper elementary people, if you do want to look at some of the resources you didn't see yesterday, that's fine, but I would like you to use this time to practice with the materials if at all possible. You don't have to interact with a person. You can just pretend to give it to a child or pretend you took it off the shelf and you're working with it, but I want you practicing until 10, and we're going to break from 10 until 10:15. Okay? And like I don't know if all of you heard it, but it's so cheap to make. I mean, even if you had to make it, even if you want a set for your own to make it yourself, it's very cheap to make. So I'm going to kind of finish this up with this. These are your games. Remember how I told you that you have game cards? So I just printed them out. Oh, there's the rest of them. I just printed them out on paper this morning, and so they are going to be sitting over. Here, you can have those. They're going to be sitting over with the list, so that when we have a session to work, that you can go practice some of the games if you would like to. And the last thing, because this is one of those few things that if I explain it to you, it's going to make it easier. I don't like to have to cut around the black lines. You have to do more cutting. If you hate the black lines, you have to cut them off. So mine don't have those lines. You get a cutting template instead. And so the cutting template tells you how to cut them. You print them off all on one page, run them through the laminator in a nice, big, easy to handle form, and then you cut them using your cutting template. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you see, here's the large lists. Here are the small lists. So I'll just put these back over here with that. But that's one where I think most of it's self-explanatory, but that may not be as much. Now, I think I am going to finish with this in case those other folks come back. Booklet 2 is not that, I mean, there's not a lot to it except for lists. So this is the kind of thing, if you've got a child that their parents are willing to help them and they are moving along through the program but maybe need some extra help, this is the kind of thing you can spend 5 or 10 minutes with the parent and then send it home with them. And I mean, you can print it on paper. You don't have to print it on cardstock, and they could work with their children on the words at their child's level. So you see, this is all pink, and if you don't laminate it, you can even add more words there if you want to. Then here's the blue, and here's the green, and this is just taking us up to the next level. Booklet 1, about the first 100 most common words. I think we're up to about 300 here, and then this is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated, because if you looked at that thing that said, well, how do you work with children of different ages? You saw some things about principles and rules. Kinder's you would not be teaching these unless you have a child that's come to you as maybe a pink or a blue reader already. Then it would be appropriate. Otherwise, it's for the older children, even if they're non-readers. The older children can kind of handle the principles because they're already being able to do some abstract thinking a little bit more. But you need to understand these. You need to understand the principles and the rules. These are not spelling rules. Spelling rules don't work. I know some people disagree with me there, but that's probably more than we're going to go into today, because we need to make sure you understand how I'm going to be helping you, and that's on my videos. So if you want to know Susan's oddball thoughts on spelling, then the videos that you have that little thing from will help you. And there are charts, so you don't have to sit with your cards to learn all those sounds. You can use these charts so that you can notice, oh, this is the one I need to practice with. Oh yeah, I know all my short sounds, know all my long sounds. Oh, the third sound of you is well, that's kind of weird, you know, things like that. So, and excuse me, and then here you've got some of the same things that were in Booklet 2, but we're getting more complicated. Why is this more complicated? Is that page blue? Nope. Okay, so see, by the time you get here, you're having to work at a little less supported level. But all of these booklets, if your children can read the words in all of these booklets, they're going to be able to read any picture book that they pick up, and they're going to be able to read most of the small chapter books if they've got some of those other flow skills and fluency skills that are going. And I'm not going to talk a lot about that either, because we need to get on to some other specifics, but that's certainly something I can do a video on, or can answer if those are things that people want me to do a video. If you ask on the email or on the Facebook page, I can do some discussions like that, why I'm not that big on some of the things that people do that they think helps fluency, that I may not be that certain are necessary. But I was going to finish my thought about remind me what it's called again. Balanced, there we go, balanced literacy. I love it, you know, because they talk about reading aloud to model for the students the good reading. They talk about reading with the students. They talk about this sustained silent reading. That was very discouraging to me when I did my Montessori upper elementary training, and I was handed a booklet saying that there's no research to indicate sustained silent reading is a good use of your time. And I know who financed that research, and it's a textbook company, okay? So I think that from what I saw there, I'm probably not as big on people reading in a group as seems to be part of this approach, but otherwise it looks like a good approach to me, and I'm glad that we're kind of in harmony on that. Now, you'll notice that the materials that are shown in this episode are pretty easy to make. They are on a file that is part of the special that we have for September, the Reading and Writing Language Bundle. The files to make those materials are on that special. The flip books that you see at the very end are not, otherwise the exercises you see are part of that package.